first things first, here's the awkward truth that you need to know. When I first made one of these videos, which was back in March, it was originally going to be a series, but does it still count as a series if there's 6 months between 2 episodes? That would literally be the most frustrating Netflix show of all time. I'm never going to be Shane Dawson, am I? Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing really well. If I'm not either thinking about what I'm going to eat for my next meal, or forcing my cat to be my friend, or watching Harry Potter for maybe the 68th time, and probably still crying when Dobby dies, then you will probably find me reading a book. And they're also one of my favourite things to sit and have a chat about, which would probably lend itself quite well to joining a book club or something. But hey, why interact with humans in real life when you can sit in front of a camera and discuss books all by yourself in the hopes that strangers on the internet might watch it? Choices. Anyway, I am finally back with another books I've been reading recently video. Catchy title. And I know a lot of you have subscribed recently for fashion and clothing content, which is amazing. Hi there, thanks for stopping by. But I'm very conscious of the fact that I don't want my channel to become just that. Like, I want to keep making the videos that I really want to make and not just the ones that I think will perform well. And I'm also very conscious, and I think this is very important, of the fact that some of you guys who've maybe been watching my videos before I started talking about clothes all the freaking time, some of you might not necessarily benefit from content that is constant chat about sizing and body image and things like that. I'm very aware of that. So I want to make sure that we keep a nice mixture going on around here. So talking about books might not exactly be hashtag cool and hashtag relevant, but literally when have I ever been either of those things anyway? Today I'm basically going to go through all the stuff that I have been reading recently, tell you a little bit on what it's all about, whether it was actually any good, or whether I deserved a gold medal for getting through to the last page. But every title that I do mention in this video that I'm gonna have a chat about, I will make sure to link down below so you can grab a copy for yourself if you like the sound of it. So with all that out of the way, classic long intro by me. If you enjoyed this video, then please do give it a little thumbs up. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you are new, and let's get bookwormy. It's a bookworm. Okay, first up is the book which is potentially the ultimate embodiment of don't judge a book by its cover. It's called Friend Request. It is by Laura Marshall, and the tagline is "Maria wants to be friends, but Maria is dead, isn't she?" Which basically just reminds me of that bit on Friends where Joey says, "Betsy's been dead for 10 years. But hey, this was actually really good. It scared the crap out of me and I really enjoyed it. So as you can probably guess, main character Louise gets a message on Facebook from someone who is very much dead, and unsurprisingly, she freaks out about it. It's been sent from Maria, and Maria has been missing and presumed dead for 25 years after she disappeared at their school leavers party. But the messages from Maria start to escalate, and Louise has no choice but to reconnect with people from her past at school to try and figure out what's going on. Is someone playing a cruel prank on her? Has Maria really been alive this whole time? And what's this big secret that Louise feels so guilt about that obviously links in with all of this? Ooh, so many questions. I definitely expected a cliche story, but actually it was full of really great suspense, and there were a lot of moments where I actually couldn't put this book down. I also just think it's pretty cool to have a thriller that revolves around social media and like the vulnerability that we all experience through using social media, but that we never really think about because we're all so used to it. I liked how it alternated between past and present. I liked the fact that I had absolutely no idea whether I could trust the main protagonist, and I really liked the couple of big, and I mean big, twists that came throughout the story. So I thought it was well written, it was fast paced, and it really surprised me, and it had a really satisfying ending. Top thriller. Next I have It's Always the Husband. This is by Michelle Campbell, and oh boy was this a ride. A wild ride. So this one tells the story of 3 best mates who are called Kate, Aubrey and Jenny. They all meet at university or college because it's set in America, and right from day one of moving into college they all become instantly inseparable, even though each one of them is like a totally different person from the other. But as time goes on and the story moves on, you also start to see that actually it's the kind of friendship where in fact they secretly kind of hate each other, like ultimate frenemies. It's told as like a dual narrative, which I think is quite cool. I always quite like like that in a book. So it alternates between their first year together at college and then later on when they're in their 40s. So one thing I would say is that the first half of the book isn't really a mystery or a thriller suspense kind of novel. I would say it's more of just a story about like complicated relationships between young women growing up at college together. Things really move up a gear in the second half of the book. Something tragic has happened. Someone is dead, and someone we met in the first half of the book may have done it. That's all I can tell you really without giving too much away. So there's a bit of everything in this book. It's friendship, enemies, love, hate, secrets, revenge. One thing that really stood out to me was the characterization in this book. I thought it was really great, but I do think that sometimes when you spend a long time developing a character, it does mean that the story itself is slowed down a little bit. So it did mean that sometimes the story itself moved a little bit slowly, but it's worth it though, because as you go along, you start disliking each of these characters so much that you can't help become really invested in it. Yeah, they're all pretty horrible, to be honest, but I actually just think that makes them a lot more realistic and interesting. Like, they're far from perfect, and that's what I look for in characters. Who wants a perfect character? If you love thrillers that scare and terrify you and that keep you at that level of suspense where you might have a heart attack at any moment, this might not be the one for you. As I said, the pace focuses more on like developing a story and its characters. And it's almost like the thriller aspect of it is more of a subplot. But when I did finally get to the end, I'm pretty sure I just stared at the last page like, oh my God, for quite some time, because it was one of those, it was really good. Number 3, which you probably recognise because it's a big one. This is Into the Water by Paula Hawkins. Like everyone else in the world, I had such high hopes for this. Such high hopes and dreams. Yeah, I had really high hopes for this because if you don't recognise the name, it's the same author who wrote The Girl on the Train, which is, of course, an incredible book. So in all fairness, maybe it's my fault for assuming that this would be similar and equally amazing. Did I set myself up for a fall like so many times in life? Anyway, Into the Water. In the last day before her death, Nell called her sister Jules, but Jules didn't pick up the phone. Jules! And now Nell is dead. It's said that she jumped to her death on purpose, but... So her sister Jules has been dragged back to the place where they grew up to care for Nell's teenage daughter, Lena, but Jules knows that Nell would never have jumped, and undeniably connected to Nell's death is the death of Lena's best friend, who was also claimed by the same river. Water, river, you see where this is going. So first things first, I have to say, the adverts that say, oh, if you liked The Girl on the Train, then you'll love Into the Water, absolute BS. This is nowhere near as thriller-esque as Girl on the Train, and not as suspenseful. I would actually say that Into the Water is a totally different kind of book. It doesn't focus in depth on any particular character, and instead it actually moves between the different perspectives of tons of characters that live in the same local village where all this goes down. One thing that you could say is similar, I guess, is that both books have the theme of like memory and the limitations of how reliable memories can be. I guess they both kind of look at that, but in very different ways. There are so many characters involved in this book that it is a little bit of a difficult read at times. A couple of times I found myself just like losing patience a little bit and getting confused and having to go back and double check names pretty often. But I definitely didn't totally hate it. It actually kind of reminded me of like an ITV drama series, like Broadchurch or something. There's all these like interlocking stories and points of view in the local village that makes everyone seem suspicious, but then finally it all links back together in the end. As a book, which I guess is the point, I'm just not totally convinced. Like, there was no real like, oh my god, this is amazing, kind of like really clever moment for me. But having said that, I did finish it and I did enjoy it, so it can't have been that bad. And I thought the end was much better and much more readable and enjoyable than a lot of the beginning. Not exactly a page turner, but all the kind of overlapping secrets and a nice resolution at the end. Looking at this pile, out of all of these that I'm going to chat about today, there's maybe 3 books. Yeah, I reckon 3 books that I would say you absolutely must get reading ASAP. and this is one of them. Again, I'm sure a lot of you will recognise this one. This is Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. I'm gonna guess you've probably heard about this book because it's been in the best-selling fiction charts for about 50,000 years now, and honestly, I would say this lives up to the hype. I loved it so much. I think it's kind of rare that a book gives you a character who's so special that they kind of stay with you after you finish reading it and you think about them. But I think Eleanor Oliphant is a character like that. I think she is so brilliant. So as the title suggests, Eleanor Oliphant is completely 100% fine. She goes to her office job 5 days a week and then treats herself to a frozen pizza and a bottle of vodka at the weekend. Same, babes, same. Eleanor lives alone and she doesn't have any friends, but that's okay. She's fine. Except maybe she isn't so fine. And in fact, Eleanor is so odd and so literal in her terms of speech and so unaware of social norms that sometimes it's actually painfully awkward to read. In some ways, it is a hilarious book that literally made me laugh out loud at times. But it's also very sad in quite a specific way, which I think a lot of people will be hit right in the feels by. There is romance involved, but it could not be further away from your typical romance. It's not romantic. And it was just so strangely great that a story about a woman could just be sad and thought-provoking without her suddenly being saved by a romance, if that makes any sense. There wasn't a romance that led this female character into happiness, which made such a nice change. Does that make sense? I don't know, like she wasn't suddenly cured by falling in love, and her happiness and self-worth wasn't dependent on a romance with a man. Great, I want to see more of that. It was about Eleanor herself rather than her developing relationship with anybody else, and I really liked that, and I think it meant the character bond between character and reader was a lot stronger than anything else that I've read recently. It was wonderfully heartwarming and emotive, and it was completely unique, and I want to read it again. So read it. Read it now. This gorgeous little book is called Eat Up, and it is by Ruby Tando, who was once on the Great British Bake Off and is now a badass writer. I picked this up for myself because I was just intrigued by it, and I really like Ruby. I follow her on Twitter and I think she's doing great things. And basically anything that helps me to think about or address or just sort of consciously think about a bit more my relationship with food and body image in like a gentle and kind of like a nudge in the right direction. Ruby wrote this book as a medicine to the tirade of dieting and green living, eating disorder in disguise, health books, which are everywhere right now. And while they can be quite judgmental and condescending and make you feel a lot of guilt about the choices that you make for you and your body, this doesn't do that. In fact, it does the entire opposite of all those things. And instead, it very gently addresses things like weight and eating in public and almost like the sensations of eating, as well as the diet industry, diet culture, eating trends, and then also like food as power and like food as comfort and love and care and the warm kind of like kindness that should come with food, rather than viewing it as this terrifying thing that you can get wrong. It is not preachy or patronizing, and it won't leave you feeling like an idiot. It won't leave you feeling inadequate or stupid for your choices about foods and diets. And instead it's just like listening to a really understanding friend, someone who really cares about you and wants to make you think and feel better about yourself and your eating. It's like a warm, thoughtful little hug in a book. It's a big mixture of like gorgeously written narrative. There's some of Ruby's recipes in there, which don't have any like moral battles about being good or bad. And there's some nice, gentle, great chat about body image in there as well. I just loved it. I think it's really important and I wish I'd had it when I was like 15 years old. Okay, so you know how I said there's a few books in here that you have to read? This is it. This is the one. This is going to hurt. Secret Diaries of a Junior Doctor by Adam Kay. And again, you've probably heard of this before because it is everywhere. In fact, I think it's still like top 3 of the charts right now and has been for absolutely ages, because it is amazing. Although actually I put off reading this for ages because I just didn't think it sounded like my cup of tea. I never read like memoirs, but I picked it up in the train station one day and I read it in one day. I literally finished it in the space of a few hours because I just couldn't stop reading it. It was so brilliant. Obviously Adam, the author, was a junior doctor in the UK before a devastating experience on a ward made him take a different journey and leave that job. But while he was on the front line of the NHS, he kept a diary through his training, and This Is Gonna Hurt is some of his most memorable stories. So these stories vary from absolute lol, like, oh my god, I look like such a weirdo, levels of laughing out loud on public transport. There's also some completely gross and horrifying things, mostly about objects getting stuck in orifices. And then obviously there is some as well which are absolutely devastating and gut-wrenching and horrible to read and imagine any human being going through. So it is a real roller coaster, and I wouldn't do it justice to just call this like a funny book, because there's so much more to it than that. It obviously also comes with an amazingly important message and reflections on like the current crisis that the NHS is going through right now. If you're in the UK, then you'll know all about that. It is the perfect response to those politicians who portrayed junior doctors as lazy and money grabbing. Instead, it just literally gives the truth of how they're worked to the brink of a breakdown most of the time, and a lot of them are at their complete wit's end because the job is so insane. And it just left me feeling so amazingly, limitlessly grateful for the NHS. I hope Jeremy Hunt reads this at some point and save the NHS. It's been at least 5 minutes since I last mentioned some kind of murderous thriller fiction, so here's another one. And Then She Was Gone by Lisa Jewell, great name. Warning, this gave me some weird dreams and left me slightly terrified to be home alone, so yay! We love a messed up bedtime story. 15-year-old Ellie goes missing, and then suddenly it skips forward to the present day 10 years later. Then the rest of the story is from the perspective of her mother Laurel for a while, until it then later skips back and forth between the two. So Laurel, as any mum probably would, has never given up hope that she'll find her daughter one day, but then she meets the charming and charismatic Floyd, who sweeps her off her feet. Before long they're in a relationship, and his 9-year-old daughter Poppy is also part of Laurel's life. But there's something strange about Poppy, because she's the spitting image of Ellie. This book is addictive. There was so much tense, uncomfortable atmosphere and like clever characterization that it was pretty much the perfect thriller. Whoa, just gonna throw that out there. Honestly, it's pretty dark at times, and then when the truth starts unraveling later on, it's pretty messed up. Obviously messed up in a great kind of way if you're into books like this. And then there's a real like emotional punch in the face at the end, which I was really not expecting. You might be able to guess what happened to Ellie before you reach the final chapters, I will say that, but you won't be able to guess why it happened. And I guess that is actually the real crux of an interesting like missing person story. Big thumbs up for this one. I absolutely loved it, even if it did keep me awake, slightly terrified of one of the characters. Worth it. At the total opposite end of the joy spectrum, always got time for some YA fiction, even if I'm not really a Y anymore and I'm just an A these days. Let's ignore that part. Literally, who cares? YA fiction is for everybody. This is Love, Simon, which is the new title since it became a movie, but I think the original is called Simon versus the Homo sapiens Agenda. It is by Becky Albertalli, I want to say, And you may have spotted the movie Love, Simon, which came out recently. It's meant to be really great and I really want to see it now because I love this book so much. It is just so lovely. It is lovely, lovely, lovely. It is a lovely book. So Love, Simon is all about 16-year-old Simon, who is gay but hasn't come out to his friends or family. So when an email that he sent to his anonymous pen friend falls into the wrong hands, his secret is at risk of being exposed. He's getting blackmailed about his sexuality at school by the person who found this email, which isn't ideal, but he's more worried that it could out his email pen friend, Blue, who is also gay. But he doesn't know who Blue is while he's emailing him, but he knows that he's at the same school that he goes to. I've explained that really badly. So the dynamics between Simon and his friends start to get a bit messy as things get understandably complicated, but his emails with Blue are gradually becoming more of a thing. Simon has to step out of his comfort zone while also juggling high school and his secret sexuality. It's quite a lot to handle. When it first came out, the original title and the cover didn't really appeal to me because apparently I'm just a judgmental bitch when it comes to choosing my fiction, but I could not have enjoyed it more. I'm so glad that for some reason I decided to pick this up and give it a go. It was just so lovely. Again, it was so lovely. There are some really like hilarious moments that reminded me of me and my friends at school, and just a lot of like perfectly written teenage happiness and just like teenage-ness. A lot of the time when authors try to write teenagers, it's just done terribly and it's so cringe, but this just absolutely nailed it. I feel like for a lot of teenagers this could be a really important book because of the LGBT content, which is obviously a fantastic thing, but even as a straight 27-year-old girl, I just really loved the warm and fuzzies that this gave me. It was heartwarmingly great. And last but not least, I thought I would chuck this in because this is what I'm just about to start reading. So I thought it'd be cool to show you in case you like the sound of it too. It's called Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng. Sorry if I've pronounced that incorrectly. Honestly, I don't know much about it, but it's another one that I've seen all over the place and I can't help but get intrigued by these like popular books that everyone talks about at a certain time. I feel like I'm just compelled to read them because I want to know what everyone's getting so excited about. It's fiction, and here's what the blurb says. In the placid, progressive suburb of Shaker Heights, everything is meticulously planned, from the colours of the houses to the successful lives its residents will go on to lead, and no one embodies the spirit more than Eleanor Richardson. There's some other characters involved who've got a mysterious past and a disregard for the rules, which I guess when you've got a perfect community is always going to end in inevitable disaster. Mrs. Richardson becomes determined to uncover the secrets of another character's past, but her obsession will come at an unexpected and devastating cost to her own family. So that sounds good. Great decisions surely made by these characters. Can't tell you much more about this, to be honest, because I'm only this far through. So I've got a little while to go, but so far so good. I'm really enjoying it. So far I've read a bit on the tube and at bedtime. Plus I really like the cover. So that's definitely super important. And that is all the books I have to show you today. That probably kept you quiet for quite some time. If you haven't read any of those, then there's your next reading list sorted for the next 65 years. As always, my favourite part about filming videos is hearing what you guys have to say about all of this. I want to hear if you have read any of these books, which one was your favourite? Have you read any of them that you didn't enjoy? It would be really cool if we could turn the comments section into like a little bit of a discussion about all these books. So if you are feeling suitably bookwormy right now, then don't forget to get involved down in the comments below. If you did enjoy this video, then I would love it if you could chuck a thumbs up my way. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you're new as well. I realise that the content on this channel is never-endingly random at the moment and you never really know what's gonna turn up next, but life's like a box of chocolates. It'll make you feel sick and no one likes the nuts. Anyway, thanks so much for watching and I will see you guys very soon with another video. Bye! Mwah.